I'm gonna bring the Dunbarton Board of Selectmen special meeting to order to wrap up end of year business. All three selectmen are present. The road agent is present, town administrator is present, and Leo Martell is present and recording the meeting for the benefit of the public. And Linda Nickerson will upload those videos to the town website and to YouTube. Okay, under old business, I have some approval of the December 21st meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular minutes of December 21st as amended.
Second.
Motion been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, let me see if I can find those under here.
That's how they,
It's in this
I
one.
think so.
I think we got them. Looked like they were well done. Okay. Bob, you wanna make a motion on the non-public
Yeah,
meeting
I'll
minutes?
make a motion on non-public meeting for December 21st, as written.
I second.
Okay, motion been made and second, all in favor?
I should ask for a discussion though, but I think it didn't look any different after I saw the red.
No, it's, in fact, Dave, what you stated in that, what you stated, how it summarized your statement,
Yeah,
I concur 100% with it, it was well written.
okay. All right, that being said, you guys can sign it, and we're gonna seal those meeting minutes, remember, so Lean has provided the tape. Leo, you're the only public person here, do you have any comments?
Not yet, no. Nope,
Okay.
keep going.
All right. Move this one over to seal that up, Bob. Okay.
Can I make a recommendation, Dave?
Sure.
So we go out of order since Jeff is here and it's, you did.
Jeff is staying for our non-public anyway,
Okay,
so.
okay. I just was trying to be helpful.
Yep. So the first thing is, let's look at this one, this was on our review the deputy town clerk wages. This was brought to light by our town clerk at her budget review. That's right at the end of here. We did a printout of the wage scale for us and how much it would cost for the year. I think we were in kind of a consensus when we heard about this. She asked that as far as January 1st, bringing her up to the step 2 level, she's at the step 1 now. January 1st, and I think we were all in consensus that that seemed okay. And she had asked for, what was it, in August at her anniversary, to go up to the step 3 level, and I think from what I heard from the board that they wanted to wait on that. We're gonna have some discussion on that, guys?
Well, you know, again, with the personnel plan, there's a reason why they have step increases, and that's for retention of people.
Uh-huh.
So I understand that in August, you would actually be in line for step 2.
Yeah,
So, you know, I guess we could waive that a little bit, you know, for
Yeah.
a few months, so that she's collecting step 2 in January. She does an excellent job. And believe me, this isn't about who it is,
Right.
or what it is, or anything.
Yeah.
It's the purpose of what we have in that personnel plan. And we haven't made those changes. So to ask for 2 step increases, one in advance, and the second one in a year that it becomes due, I have significant problems with that, no matter who it would be, you know, it's
just
not,
to keep this short, Bob, I'm in full agreement with
you
that.
know,
I
so,
don't mind doing the one a little early in January, and I think we kind of briefly discussed this last time, but I think we'll hold off on the step 3
Yeah.
increase, but this would give them some incentive as far as January 1st, because we do wanna retain the person we have,
Right.
because it's a good
Right.
person.
and they would be seeing that anyways in that year, but, you know, it doesn't make sense to give you 2 increases in the same year.
Right.
So if I'm hearing the board correctly, are we looking to just
We want it, on
Budget.
January 1st, we'll bring her to the step
Step
2
2.
level, and leave her at that until her regular,
2
Time
years,
on the
the
2 years on
5th year
the step
anniversary
three.
for step 3, okay.
yeah, unless they come to us with a different request other than this. And you guys are good with that?
Well, I just wanna, reaffirm what Bob said, why do we even have steps in there if we're not gonna go by them?
Yep,
I think it's, if we're gonna do it by which way the wind is blowing, that's one thing, but I think we have a plan, and we should somewhat follow the plan, step increases with time and service and all that kind of stuff.
yep,
You know, if we were gonna look at something differently that was done, I had a brief discussion with the town administrator, and even though I'm not in favor of that, the way our personnel plan's written, cause you review the person every year.
yep,
So you know, we have the raise that we look to see what we can give them each year. You know, we use the Department of Labor statistics, but if they're having a review and they're exemplary, maybe we need to give another 1% or whatever it is as incentive. And then maybe we'll avoid using those steps ahead of time so that they're in place when they get to that and they see a change. in
so
the-
during our policy review, maybe we'll look at
You know,
options like that to keep
I
it.
like that idea for
Cause
the,
it has been coming up more frequently
right,
as a
and
board.
we've used it, we've short-circuited it, and so we're
Yes.
violating the policy too, so.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, maybe someone who's very exemplary, we give a percentage more for the year, almost as a performance bonus.
Right, and we can look at our policy and,
Now exemplary, again, if a person's coming in on time and doing their work and doing what they're capable of doing, and the supervisor says, you know, that they're a good employee, then that's what we wanna look at.
right,
It's a guy that doesn't come in on time and is always sick or whatever, I guess that would be a deal breaker.
okay, Lean, so are you clear with what the board's consensus is on this? So we're gonna go to step 2 scale of 1704 starting January 1st.
Right, that's after the budget's approved, so she'll stay where she is now, and they'll be prorated after the budget passes,
Yeah,
to go bring her to step 2,
In other words,
okay,
we can't, the budget is not gonna be approved to the town meeting,
correct,
and so we're gonna give a retroactive pay to January
Yeah.
1st, okay,
that's,
I'm good with that,
that's typically what we do.
okay.
okay. Next thing we wanna do is review the revenues and expenses. Lean printed us out new forms for that through the end of this year to date.
Okay, I highlighted both reports at the top, one's revenues, one's expenses. And if you turn the page, you can review I did back to back to save on paper. But to give you a brief summary of the revenues to date, this was printed today. I have everything that I can in the system, excluding the December tax collector export. I was able to get that number from her deputy today. In your revenue numbers, there's one item in here, which is the sale of the town vehicle that gets logged as revenue of town property in these numbers. The board authorized that individual to spend it, so even though it's shown in here in that total of the third column from the right, it's $3,400 that you guys authorized an employee to spend to uplift his new vehicle. The export report that I got from the town clerk is $61,186, doesn't include today and tomorrow's sales. So that puts us at an excess of revenue over our anticipated budget of $57,786.
Lean, we only had one current use penalty come in this year.
Unfortunately, yes, and that's divided 50% with
Yeah.
the Conservation Commission, so.
In comparison to last year, do you recall how much we were over last year?
Last year, I'm gonna say we were up like 147,000,
So we're a little bit down from previous year,
correct, yeah, 100 grand.
okay.
I
And
was
then
saving paper, I missed a whole section here.
I was also advised by the Department of Revenue that when we go to set our rooms and meals and our highway budget for next year, that we want to try to be conservative, because this COVID will affect, what,
Did they all recommend percentage less considered?
No, they did not. I may try to reach out to her and see if she's got an idea
Okay,
before I present the projected
budget.
revenues for you
Okay.
to review and consider.
thank you.
What's the date we have to square away our rainy day fund, Lean?
As far as what?
What
Collecting?
percentage we decide we're gonna put in that?
Well, there'll be a little bit more revenue coming in from the tax collector that the auditor automatically backdates to the prior year. And that's in January and February for outstanding taxes that were warranted. But this will, you'll wanna decide this when we go to set the warrants and how you want to use that. You can do nothing with it and then use it in, when we set the tax rate in October. But this is basically showing you that we had used anticipated numbers, we've come in a little bit higher, so if you do nothing, that will increase your surplus by that number.
Lee, can you do me one favor?
Yep.
Not to be done now, but can you give me a list of the current expenditures on the government buildings?
A detail?
Yeah, just
Okay,
so what we've spent,
yeah, for the 70,000 that's in that line?
yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. Detail?
Just that, it can be done in a couple of weeks, doesn't need to be done right away.
Yep.
Well, looks like we got plenty of good New Year's reading here.
Are so you're going through the expenses right now?
Yes, I was just flipping through the
That's fine.
percentages, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I do have a few things that are encumbered, based on, contracts. But currently, right now, we are at $3,700.
That way-
$374,000 in, 321 for surplus on our operating budget.
Okay. Which will still be adjusted a little bit. in the
Yeah,
bottom
because
section.
we'll have outstanding invoices that come in for the next few weeks, usually through end of January, beginning of February. We continue to see expenditures.
Okay, so we can look through these and highlight the revenues and the expenses that we, think we wanna look at to tighten up our budget later in the season.
Yeah, I think we have to be very conservative this year.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that update, Lean.
Okay, this is just my first pass on the warrants for 2021, you have that in your packet. You wanna go to that next, or?
Yeah, let me just look here what I've got here. Town warrant 2021, okay.
All right, from my understanding is there's probably will be one amendment to the zoning that the planning department is working on, so I just left that as a placeholder. Article 3 will be the operating budget, which is still outstanding. Article 4 on page 2 is the standard, revaluation, capital reserve. The impact for that, based on tax burden, would be 4 cents.
The 14,000 wasn't the increased amount. I know that we did an increased amount one year because of the
That was
total
the,
reevaluation.
that was the reval. It's 10,000 a year for,
The town,
the reval itself, but 4,000 covers the revaluation for the utility
Okay.
appraiser. So they bumped it to 14 a year for 5 years in a row.
So what, 4,000 in other words?
4,000 for the, yeah, so combined, they will cover his $20,000 coverage.
and Lean, I see on item number 5,
Yeah,
the wording says 20,000 and you put
Oh.
30,000.
okay, I have not changed it. So Woody approached me just recently saying that because he's not doing the building improvements that he was proposing, he'd like to up his 20,000 to 30,000 for capital reserve deposit.
Now,
In the past, we've been doing 20.
this is a vehicle or equipment,
Yeah,
capital reserve, nothing to do with a building,
correct.
so there's no sense in increasing that.
Okay, yeah, valid, that's true.
Okay, so let's bring that back down to 20, and if we need to add a warrant article for something he's
It
thinking
would be
about,
separate,
it would be separate.
gotcha,
So
okay.
let's put that back down to 20, okay?
Yep, that's good.
Concur.
You good with that, Bob? You see?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
I
number,
saw that.
We gotta make sure not to mix the two.
yep. Number 6 is the standard, capital reserve deposit for the fire department.
Now,
Past,
again, we're gonna have discussion here later,
Right.
that one's labeled as 40 and we're moving it to
I was
60.
just gonna say, in past, we had it at 40. I spoke to John briefly, asking if he had additional warrants he was gonna be, requesting, and he said, we discussed his capital reserve deposit. He's on the agenda to talk about his warrants and, what's going on with his equipment currently. But I asked him, would he feel comfortable increasing that to 60, and he said, yes, let's try and put the 60 in there for discussion and see what the board comes back with. So last year, we did 40, this year, he's looking for 60.
Okay, going to 7.
Okay, number 7, I got a quote from the police department. It's $1,000 more than last year's vehicle, he's asking for 54,000. I just transferred about 10,500 of, revenues that we collected from the, special duty services to bring their, special duty account up to about $23,000, so we're gonna use 22 of that from the revolving fund, and then the remainder would come from taxes. That 32,000 is an 8-cent impact.
So it's 32, not 13, like it says in the wording, right?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
So all those are gonna be,
Can
draft
you tell me the year we purchased the last vehicle?
last year, 2020.
I thought we were trying to do every 2 years on these vehicles.
Actually, we purchased it in 2019, and they just took delivery of it this year.
Okay. I think we'll have to speak about this further, but we were trying to spread these vehicles out so that they could actually be funded. That's why I started that police cruiser, equipment.
Yep. That on the warrant last year. Missing my warrant.
So you see, it's on number 8, Lean, which is your next one. Town
Yeah.
vote to establish a new police vehicle capital reserve fund.
Okay, so that wording's gonna have to change to deposit. Do we want to put that on the warrant and put money in there? It would
Well,
be-
I think if he's looking for 32, I don't think we should make line number 832. What did we do last year for dollars?
We put $1,000 in it, just to start it,
So that was just a start last year.
yep.
You got one issue. That was in March.
And just to set the record straight, it was on the agenda for, this is, our 2020 warrant, Article 13, was to purchase a cruiser, so we did get one this year, and we've taken possession of it this year,
Okay.
2020.
And I remember speaking with the chief and
Well,
his
yep,
staff a couple times about trying to do these in an orderly function of every
Yeah.
2 years to try and keep it so that we can actually fund this line item without going to the public for a warrant article each time on it.
okay, but when they presented their budget,
I remember
they
they,
asked for
I
a
read it.
car. Okay, so,
I wasn't here at that budget, but I did read it, you guys left me a copy, and I think that's something that's gonna be up for discussion, because I'd like to check what the needs are and review
Okay.
all that.
all right, so we'll get the chief in here to talk about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to know, what I wanna be able to do is on warrant article number 8, come up with an amount that with their special duty money and this amount, every 2 years, the car will be pretty much paid for, like every other department waits to get their vehicles, instead of coming to the town with an amount.
Yeah.
over and above that, so we have somewhat of a regulated thing going on with these police vehicles.
That's a great idea, yeah.
So whether that's 10,000 or 15,000,
I mean, in 2019, we had a good year, so what we used towards the warrant was $40,000, but we depleted that money,
right,
and
which it's okay to deplete every 2 years, and that's why
Right.
you don't do one every year.
so
for
this
development.
year's deposit was 10,500, so it brought their remaining balance of 10 up to 23,000 and change, so that's why we were reducing it to 22. But I see what you're saying, if you go every 2 years,
It's double the amount.
double the amount, and you
Yeah, and
could
you come into
possibly
the
have.
town for very little amount on their warrant.
You're minimizing what you
Yeah,
have to request.
So, what I'm looking at, if we did 10,000 in this line item number 8
Yeah,
every year,
yeah,
with their special duty money and that 10,000 every year, just about pays for a vehicle. And if we need to adjust that to 12 or 15, then we'll do it, but
And the
okay,
thing-
that way it's just like every other department.
And the thing is, one thing but the question we wanna ask is, why do you need the new vehicle?
Yes.
For one more year, you can't keep it.
Right, and that's what I wanna work,
Yeah.
because we did talk to them about going every 2, so let's do line item number 8 at 10,000, Lean, for now.
okay, all right, I'll put that in there.
And, we'll discuss that further with the police department.
Okay, and I put a note here to get him to come in and talk about Article 7, and then possibly the Article 8 as well.
And we have, the next one is Article 9, which is gonna be for, 25,000, it shows for the highway
Yeah,
vehicles, 25, the same as we've done every year.
last year we cut it down, but I think in the past we've done a minimum of 25,000, I think that's
That
correct,
sounds
right,
correct,
Jeff?
Jeff.
A deposit into your capital reserve?
For your,
Yeah, I mean,
Replacement vehicle.
you want me to say something, or
Yeah.
just sit here and be quiet?
no, you're the department head. Go
Well,
ahead and talk.
I didn't know what you were entertaining tonight.
We're only going over these stuff
Yeah,
as a
but I
rough
just,
thing.
this is something to think about in the process.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna throw it out there, listening to what Lean just said, the rooms and meals tax was no big surprise, we're gonna take a hit on that.
yeah,
I guess I'm hearing the highway block grant might be affected as well.
yeah,
That's not a big surprise either, cause the state can't keep giving money away and not getting it in. We're at the end of a 2-year budget cycle, so we're pretty confident this year we're gonna get what was promised to us.
yeah.
So whatever they craft for a budget next year is gonna be a 2-year budget.
Mm.
So whatever cutbacks or anything, we'll probably be living with it for 2 years, maybe longer, I don't know. Till things get back on track. We're in good shape with the highway department, we just purchased a new truck and took delivery in September of a large truck. Our smaller everyday truck is 5 years old. It's, you know, time flies, it will have to be replaced. But if you were trying to balance budgets and keep things in line, I would have no problem with you reducing that $25,000 significantly.
To what, 20, or are you
I'm
talking
thinking
15?
about 10, 12,
Yeah, something, I would like us to see us just chip away at it, put a little something in it.
agreed.
I don't wanna see a zero,
Okay.
but I would rather,
You wanna
carry
do-
this to the next article, I'd rather
Do
see
you
you
wanna
do.
do 10 or 15 is what I'm thinking, Jeff, because I want it to be enough amount so that,
Yeah,
when we need that 6-wheeler to replace a smaller 1-ton,
yeah,
that we have the funds in there to do it, so.
yeah, well, it's.
What's the cost of one of those, Jeff,
Around 100,000,
for the 6-wheeler?
yeah, so I mean,
Let's say we get 3 more years out of it.
And
Yeah.
right now.
100,000 for the little 1-ton?
well, time you outfit it with a plow and all that stuff, that's just a quick number, I think we were 80.
So I'm thinking we better
something.
stick with the 15-ish.
That's
Yeah,
what my thought was.
but if you wanna pare it down, I think it, to help make everything, the numbers work. But I'd rather see you fully fund the paving one, because we're behind.
Alright, well, let's go to 15 on that one for now, Lean, okay?
But you understand where I'm coming
I
from
do.
with that. I would really think we'd be making a mistake to zero it out.
Agreed.
That's the process.
Agreed.
No, and I don't wanna zero it and then have to come up with, that's
Yes.
the whole thing that I wanna do with all our vehicles, if we can try and budget them correctly.
What
So-
I'll do next week is give you an up-to-date statement of all the capital reserve funds,
Once
so
we
that you
read-
can really
yep.
see what's there, and that might help.
Okay.
So we're gonna go with 15 tentatively?
10
Yeah.
of you.
On item number 10,
Alright,
Uh,
the paving, I think we'll leave it at 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather see, can I just ask a quick question about that?
No,
You know, they're never quick, are they? earlier in the year when we were talking, crafting the budget and throwing around,
You were thinking of a bond?
I was asking about a bond. Is there been any more discussion or what's your gut feeling on
There
that?
hasn't been, and what I'd like to do is,
We're
look
gonna
at,
have some more?
what I'd like to do is look at these warrant articles.
Okay, that's
And,
fine.
and what I'd like to do is if we can balance these out a little bit better,
Yeah,
maybe we bring your paving up, okay?
okay, yeah.
All right, and then not have to do the bond and the warrant article for
Yeah,
the
again,
bond, so.
I really would like to do a bond, I think it would serve us well, but this whole financial thing, I mean, it's.
I don't think this
it's
is
just
the right-
more than, yeah, it's just more than the highway department.
And this isn't the right year for that, so my thought is if we can look at these, balance them out, and as a board discuss them, we'll go down on some items when we don't need vehicles, go up on other items, and kinda keep this as a fluid thing where.
Cause carrying this forward, I mean, like I was saying, we're probably in a 2-year budget cycle with what we're gonna receive from the state. And also, if we're getting cut on that, I'm sure the school side's gonna get cut on their assistance as well.
Right.
I'm assuming, maybe not, so we'll be getting hit from both sides on reduction in revenues.
But
So
it-
maybe it would be a wise idea to hold off a year and, to see how all the numbers come out, we won't know some of those until June of next year.
But as we look at this for the final numbers,
Yeah,
Jeff.
that's fine.
If we've reduced enough of these, and maybe we can put some funds into
Yeah.
yours.
You can execute additional funds if put in that line?
Yeah, that seems reasonable,
You know,
I'd be
so
very
that's-
happy with something like that.
That's
Cause
what
you've
we're-
had that almost for like 10 years now, 100 grand.
Well, I just was asking about the
You
bond.
know, and, but the thing is, one thing you brought to my attention was that we're falling behind.
Yeah,
And so the thing is, if we can do anything to at least
yeah,
try to keep up, not necessarily get ahead, but at least keep up with it a
and
little
I
bit.
realize this year's a huge moving target, it's a huge movement for the residents, this town and everybody, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem, that's all, I just,
Okay,
I'm
going to
totally
line item
open-minded.
number 11.
Okay, that's the milfoil, we did not use any funds last year, they had divers that were provided by the state. We are in the pool to, receive another grant if needed, it will not cost us anything, there are money in the.
This is almost like a placeholder, isn't it?
Correct, I have
For
to,
that
I'll
grant.
leave it there
Can
and
you,
see,
can you, just double check with the guy that's helping us down there?
yeah,
And maybe as a placeholder, like Bob said, maybe we put $10 in each one of them lines just to keep this as a placeholder in case we need it.
well, I'll hear from DES
Yeah,
and for the grant and what is needed for treatment, and that will be the number that we want to plug in the first line, the grant will be in the second line or third line, and.
so
then
you're
withdraw.
thinking about pulling line item 11 right off the warrant articles then this year?
No, it's
No.
going to be there,
It is.
even if it's $100, it's
Okay.
going to be there.
All right,
And that's why I just wanna leave it there, I'll get those numbers and I'll input it, but there will not be an impact. There's still over 20,000 in that fund, or about 16 maybe on the,
See, Dave, if you remove that from there, we come off that list for the grant money.
right,
So
yeah,
when we're trying to get back on, we may not get back on.
yeah.
So that's why they've been leaving it and
Yeah.
putting, if it's the minimum, it's the minimum.
and there's over 15,000 in this capital reserve to cover any taxes, so, it would not be an impact to the taxpayer.
Okay, and 12 is a new line?
Number 12 is the one that the cemetery trustee chairman had approached the board with. I spoke to him today, he did say he was gonna be talking to you guys next Thursday when he's on the agenda to possibly have 2 additional warrants aside from that one.
All right, we'll
and-
leave that for now.
Yeah, and the board needs to be aware that I did get a request for the all veterans credit and petitioning the selectmen. I provided him with the details that he needs that's approved language. So those are due no later than February, I wanna say it's 2 days before the public hearing, or February 4th or 3rd. And, as soon as I receive that, I will let you know that it will be added to the bottom of this.
How many signatures do you need?
I wanna say it's at least 25 signatures. So this was just basically a quick one pass over. I know there's a lot of, updates for language for the numbers, but I wanted to give you, the list, the current assessment that we'll be using to calculate the tax rate impact, just to have it fresh in your mind that this is something we'll be talking about in the near future.
You all set?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. All right, I think that takes care of that, thanks for getting that information to us, Lean.
Yep.
The next item on the agenda is John Wigan to discuss the proposed warrant, to purchase fire equipment. Apparently, we have the fire chief is here and present, we'll make a note for the meeting, and, we'll bring John up here now to discuss it.
And just for the record, he's healthy too. Yeah.
Let me get my mask on, John, come on up.
Double it up.
Gotta put him in a bubble.
Not far enough away from
Yeah.
the road.
Good to see you, John.
It is very good to see you're up and about.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, my budget, I didn't, just our opportunity to go over it, so I think the only increase was really a dispatch fee, and that was
Oh, let me grab that.
because of, town's reassessment drove up our dispatch fee.
Yeah, so your budget was up very slightly.
Yeah, so that was the only really increase, everything I tried to keep the same line, adjusted a few here and there, but the
Yeah.
bottom dollar was the only increase was dispatch fees, which obviously we don't have control over.
And that's under that mutual aid line, right?
Yep. So they, that's how they set that rate, goes by population, goes by property value, and Dunbarton had the highest increase in the Merrimack County this year, so that reflected our increase. Not that our calls were any more, it's just, it's how they set their formula.
Really?
Yep. So,
Okay.
as Lean said, on the, our capital reserve fund, we're trying to save money to replace that engine, which we're hoping to do next year. The truck's 30 years old this year, it's a 91, but it's still in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And, we've got almost, 260 in that account, it's 3, so that one even, would be a good down payment, or half payment for a truck at this point, so if we can keep adding to that, obviously the less blow will be when we buy one, but what's happened now is a tank is leaking on our tanker, and
What's the year on that one, John?
well, the tank is 30 years old or more. The chassis is 2000. We re-chassied that tanker we used to have with that new Mack in 2000. So that truck's 20 years old now. But the tank came off that Ford chassis we had, and that's at least 10 years old. It could be more. So that body's over 30 years old, and it's aluminum, and the aluminum's starting to fail. It's pitted in some spots, and it's starting to tear, and you go to repair it, tears, so we've had it professionally fixed 3 times, different leaks in it. This summer, one of the side valves started leaking, it's a box where the dump valve goes. Nobody would repair it, so we actually used that Flex Seal you see advertised. We did 2 coats of that in there, and that has stopped the leak
Unbelievable.
for now, but the rear valve, there's another leak that just started a couple weeks ago around that
So
valve.
sooner or later, that's gonna blow apart going down the road.
Yeah, and the problem is those back valves is, when you're reloading the truck, there's pressure on that valve and it's weakening the aluminum. And we had to put a big patch in last time, now it's leaking around the dump valve. And, so anyways, our thought is maybe we replace that body. And take some of this money we have in capital reserve, and then push that truck out a few more years, so we can use some of that money to put a new body on it. The trouble is, there aren't a lot of companies around anymore that will do that kind of work. Valley Fire up in Bradford was they were the big leader around, they went under a few years ago. So to get a company to come in and just replace the body, build the body, they're getting hard to find. There's a company down in Connecticut, Northeast Fire Equipment, I've had him come up. And then there's this company, Dingy, up in Plainfield, New Hampshire. He does that type of work too. And I'm trying to get a third price, but I haven't got anybody that's willing to come down and that just wants to do a body. They want to sell you a new truck.
What are your bodies running that you see so far?
So far, this one in Connecticut, he's the only one that's given me a quote yet.
Do you wanna actually announce it, because
Yeah, it's 104 or 5, his price was.
just the body, huh?
Yeah, body, compartments, valves, the whole 9 yard,
Right,
plumbed up, you know, take this body off.
and that's your
Painted.
priority right now.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what this guy at Plastow, up in Plainfield come in dingy, he does a lot of work in New Hampshire, but it's gonna be 110-ish in that range. I actually got a price about 5 or 6 years ago before Valley closed to replace it, cause we think about doing then, he was like, it was 140 then, 140 or 50.
So just for the record, there's 228,781 as of December last year in his capital reserve.
I thought there was more than that, that was
I
like
thought-
360.
I thought so too, I'm looking at this right here, fire department, you don't have two, do you?
I didn't take it.
Alright. I thought there was two, unless,
Oh,
oh, you know what, I
around
looked at,
You told me the other day it was.
it was the October statement, so maybe I should look at that. It will have increased, this is December of last year.
It wouldn't have increased that much, Lane.
No, but we would have deposited 40,000 from this
Oh,
past
yes.
year, so, you're right, John, it was
228,
260,
40.
270?
I thought it was around there. I hate to take that out, but the other thing is you'd have to do a warrant article. and do it
That's
for
268, 780,
Yeah,
if that was 40,000.
yeah, and it was about 269, isn't that what we had, what I said,
Yeah,
with interest?
something like that. I thought it was more, but. So
Well,
anyways,
I think,
I hate to take that money out of there, but we're kinda in a jam.
but John, I think you're right, cause we're also as selectmen trying to keep our meeting somewhat, we wanna keep the warrant article somewhat similar to what people have been seeing, because we're trying to limit, we are trying to have an in-person meeting, not a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
And, we had a meeting the other night with the moderator and the school board and everybody else, and we're gonna do in-person meetings. We're gonna have them in the school, in the gym, and when we get to over the population that fits in the gym, we're gonna go up into the individual classrooms and have a microphone per classroom, so that if somebody has a question to the board members down there that aren't actually sitting with us, they're gonna have a TV there broadcasting it. I guess the school is all interconnected, so each of the classrooms can be connected to the AV downstairs with the big screen, so that's how they're gonna try to function those meetings, so we'd like to keep this as simple as possible. If you think increasing your budget, at least for this year and possibly next year, to regain that money and having your warrant article instead of 40 go to 60 for a couple of years, that may be a good way around it.
Yep, 'cause we initially tried to do that, but it got reduced, and then we just kept it at 40.
Yeah.
'Cause
Right.
Back in the day, we said, well, we need to do.
What did it used to be, John, 50?
60.
60,
Used to be
yeah.
60 all the time.
It was around
Oh, okay.
60 around 2014 or
Does he need a
15,
warrant
they
to take
dropped
money
it.
out of the?
And
Yes.
it never went back up.
Yes.
You will need a warrant for that, but it can be at zero,
Right, we
To
have
the
to take that money out.
impact, so.
Yeah,
Like I said, and that other truck really is still, even though it's 30 years old, it's really still in pretty good shape. I
So
could see-
John, if we did a separate warrant article for it, would 110 cover it, cause we don't wanna be, between your budget, and-
I'd like to wait to try to get that other quote, it's gonna be, I'm not gonna be able to get 3 quotes, I don't think, which I know you guys like to get.
well, if they're no longer companies
Yeah,
that do it
yeah.
anymore, you can only do what
My
you can
hands
do.
are
Sole
tied,
source.
really,
yeah.
I mean, there's nobody
And you're
else,
going all the way down to Connecticut, and
yeah, there's, like I said, he's the only guy in New Hampshire, there's nobody in Maine, it's
So
just
what's,
that,
what's the proposal on the floor?
it looks like, we're gonna move his budget back up to 60, all right, and
Yeah.
he'll use the money out of the
current capital
current
reserve.
capital reserve, so
Some
we'll
of
have
it.
zero impact to the taxpayer
Okay.
as far as, doing that and replace the body. And if we keep his at 60,000 instead of dropping it back down to 40, it won't take that long to
Right.
recover most
5
of that
years,
money.
maybe back to 300, plus what's left over, I mean, we're not gonna completely deplete
Never
it.
gonna completely,
There's still trucks out there in today's market you can buy for 400,000 range. I mean, some towns, Bo just spent 750 on theirs, but they got every bell and whistle known to man.
I see we all get you.
But, kind of a plain Jane trucks are still,
It's gonna be $500,000 anyway.
oh yeah, it's gonna be in that
By
range.
the time you fit it up.
Yep.
Okay, Leo, you had a question?
John, is there like a lease to buy program?
Yep,
Oh, there is.
exactly.
So you
Yep,
can do.
You could do that, that's what we did with the current truck we have, I mean, our last truck we bought
Yeah,
in
right,
'05,
right.
that was,
So it's not like you're stuck if you take
Exactly.
100 and some odd thousand out and you can do something.
yeah,
I mean, the 60 this year
Yep.
won't be enough, the 60 next year won't be enough.
Exactly.
You know,
Yep.
but there's something you can be doing.
yep, that's a
Okay.
good point, cause that, we didn't have the money when we did that, our last newest engine, that was
Yeah.
250, we put, I think we put 50, 100 down, we had 3 or 4 payments of 50,000.
But you figure they took 20,000 from you back about 6 years ago, that'd be 120,000, you know, right there, you know?
Yeah, so, that probably won't have to go that route when the time comes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cause you want.
Yeah, but at least you have an option there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, John, I think we have a plan here, and, we can make sure to keep that on our, when we firm up these warrant
Yeah.
articles, we'll keep that, just, if you get back to us, let us know what your second quote comes in at, and then when we do the warrant article, I don't mind you using some of your equipment money out of your budget to round off the truck, but you
Exactly.
don't wanna use all of that if you
Nope.
don't have to.
Typically, what we do in his case where you have upfitting and other incidentals, he may get a quote, but he'll wanna include enough money to either put the name on the side or
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
whatever equipment, so up to a certain dollar amount.
Right, that's what I was talking
And he
about.
can come up with that number, I'll work on the body, the language, and he can just insert those numbers for us.
Okay,
And the other thing in the budget was, we put that money in for pay last year, and, it was kind of a
Just
guesstimate.
so the public knows what we're talking about. So we just spoke about the warrant to purchase fire truck equipment and how we're gonna do that. And the next thing on the agenda for the fire chief as well as John Wigan is to discuss the wages for the fire department, which is a subject that we previously spoke about earlier in the year. And we set up some preliminary numbers to make sure that we had enough money in the budget to cover for our part-time and full-time to start paying some of these firefighters and emergency medical people and the chief that work for the town. Not a full amount of money, but a partial amount of money. And what we're gonna discuss today is, we have money in his budget. And now that we've got a full year of these, he's done 2 payments this year. We can see that there's additional money in the budget, so we may be able to adjust this amount of money. So that's where we're coming from, just so that people can understand where we're going to next.
These aren't really employees, I call them volunteers.
Yeah,
Yes.
it wasn't a full year, because it wasn't voted into March, so from January to April, we still used the old point system.
Yeah,
So then we started the hourly rate, July 1st, and just ended it this week. So our call volume was up I think we're up right now 10 or 15 more calls than last year. But it's been a weird year because of COVID. Calls have been down. Actually, people haven't called for an ambulance as much as they've had in the past, because, they don't wanna go to the hospital or whatever. And we've had less people responding to calls because, they're afraid to get the virus or whatever. Which you can't, you don't blame them, but, so those numbers are kinda, screwed a little, but from what we spent, what I have left over, we didn't have any really large incidents this year where, we were there for 10, 12 hours, like we did with the barn fire a year ago. So, but there's still, after making those 3 payments, there's still, what, 16,000?
$21,777
$21,000.
in that line.
so you didn't even hit halfway
Right.
yet.
So, unless we have a huge increase in calls and incidents next year, I think that we can stay with that figure we got and maybe bump the hourly rate up a
Now,
little
do
bit.
you have a suggestion on those 5 hourly rates? You wanna do $5 an hour, you wanna do 2, or what do you wanna
I
do?
think if we bump them all $2,
Bump them all
because
2?
we started way low.
Yeah, we
because
started.
we didn't know what,
It was a test.
Right, it was kind of a test,
I think that that's a pretty,
That's more than reasonable.
yeah.
pretty
So
reasonable.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was
every
looking
one of
at the
those line
numbers,
items, we
and I was
bumped up.
thinking 5 only because that would get you
Yeah.
closer, but if you're happy with 2,
Yeah,
I'm
I
more than
think
happy doing
2
that.
is a fair amount.
Now, has the staff that you work, do they appreciate the new pay
Oh,
system?
exactly, yep, yep.
Because the thing is, you were worried last year of the volunteers exiting.
Yeah, no, nobody's mentioned it all.
Okay. Because that was, it was more of an incentive to reward them for putting out their hours.
Yeah, they all appreciate what we're doing, and,
Well, we do appreciate them,
Yeah.
everything is,
but like I said, we really didn't know on the, I kinda guesstimated how many calls we had last year, how many people were gonna respond for a call, and try to put a dollar figure to that, and obviously I came up short. We didn't spend that much money, and, it's not like we can go out and divide that up, I mean, you can't give people hours they didn't work, I mean, so, that's why we're not gonna spend all that money. So,
So
but
John,
I think by adjusting the rate, and, I'm sure we're gonna have an increase in calls next year, we should be a lot closer to that figure that we came up with last year.
so John, I'll make a motion that we adjust the firefighters' emergency call hourly rate of pay on firefighter, emergency medical provider, EMT, firefighter officer, lieutenant, captain, firefighter, deputy chief, and fire chief, all rates starting January 1st, 2021, $2 an hour more on each of those items, on each of those lines.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded, any discussion?
I'm very happy with it.
I appreciate that.
Very happy with it as well, John. I was thinking, looking at the budget, that we're gonna be more than $5, and I think it is better to take, as Leo was saying earlier on the subject, we take these slow steps to get where we're supposed to be in this town. We don't jump it up overnight, because you don't know if you're gonna have a big call that
Yeah.
lasts, half a week
It
out
is.
there, and then you'd be over your budget,
Yeah.
so.
If it does, it does, but I think we're pretty close to what we,
Well, the other alternative is we have to hire a full-time.
yeah,
fire
exactly.
We're
department.
gonna move the motion.
That's a
Oh.
couple years down the road, at least a couple per diem people, and you know what that's gonna
First
cost.
and second.
If we can stay at this
I'm ready
rate,
to move on.
people come out
motion-
knowing they're getting a little bit of. money.
Motion's been made, motion's been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, John, that passed. I have one more question before you leave, but I think
Yeah.
after that, yours is tied up. There was, some discussion on the Kimball Pond Road, house there that was damaged, about possibly doing, a possible burn. And I think with the regulations nowadays, we had discussed while you were out about doing a demolition using our own containers and having Jeff do the work. Is that the best way to go that you can see with the regulations out there today to burn a house?
Yeah, because you have to do lead test, on paint test, you have to have a company come in, you gotta test the soil before you start. You got lead paint, you got asbestos
Yeah,
from shingle issues, I mean, you can do it, it
But
gets
it's a lot
kinda
of work.
pricey. It's a procedure, I mean, obviously the town, has to front that, I talked to Brett, is it Brett?
Yeah.
Brett, and, he suggested maybe the town's gonna get some insurance money out of it. That could go towards the testing if you wanna burn it, but the house really is so small and so damaged,
yeah.
you're not gonna get a lot of,
By the time you guys can get down there, we'll be looking at the cell.
yeah, I mean, I think for the town to do it that way.
Okay, I just wanted to check with you, cause I know you were sick and I didn't
Yeah.
wanna do anything without talking with you
Yeah,
about it.
there's a lot to do it, actually, I mean, you can do it, but it's an expensive route to go, and what you're gonna get out of that house
Yeah.
for training because of the size of it and the damage that's in there, you're gonna be pretty limited. You might have a couple of room fires, and that's it, to go through that process to gain a couple.
Right, by the time you
Small
start it,
room
and you
fires.
guys get down here, you may as well just have
Yeah.
coffee with them, cause.
I mean, obviously,
Being a summer.
there is some area you could go in and do some training without burning it.
Yeah.
Do some ventilation drip, cutting the saws, doing that kind
Yeah.
of training. There is a potential.
We have a little ventilation going on there
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Yeah, you couldn't get on the roof though,
Yeah.
but, I mean, there is potential for do some training there without burning it.
Well, we'll have a period of time, John, between, at the end of this week, they're gonna be out completely, and then we're gonna wait to hear from the insurance company to make our final decision, but that's the way we're going, so we are gonna have a period of time this early winter here, I
Spring or
guess, to make that but it's not gonna last that long, cause as soon as we're able to, we wanna remove the town's liability, have,
Yeah.
you know, somebody get in there
Right,
and break into it, so.
Yeah, I mean,
How about,
if there was a time period, you could have a little bit, but, you know, if it doesn't happen, doesn't happen. And
Big
Don't
New
don't
Year's
hold it
Eve
up on
bonfire.
our account, but,
But I'm just saying, if you wanna think about something over the next few weeks, I think there is an opportunity if you do wanna use it
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. So the burn side of it, like I said, the size of the house, the damage of the house, and then the process of going through getting all the tests done, and the cost of those tests can get pretty pricey. I don't think it's worth it, really, for what you're gonna gain out of it.
Hmm.
You know, it was a lot better structure, bigger, you know, wasn't damaged. You can get some beneficial
I'm
training
not gonna
out of
volunteer
it,
my
but,
house.
you know,
It is a lot bigger, it'd be a nicer burn.
being in that place a few
Because it's
times.
town hall.
And there's no lead paint.
Being in that house recently, yeah, it's just not big enough really, but.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, John, for
Yeah.
coming in, and, is there
Okay.
anything else you have for the board?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I'll, move on to the next subject then, thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Likewise.
You too.
So have a safe new year.
You too.
The next thing on the agenda, because Jeff's gonna be here for the non-public anyway, I think we might wanna put that in that only because we're gonna be talking about a specific person. So I'd like to go on to the mailbox items then, and then do that all in non-public if we can, because I think that having looked at that now,
I concur.
you know, okay, you good with that, Bob?
Sure.
All right. So let's go over this as, a couple of things we left open from last week. The first thing we will start with, oh God, that's what I'm gonna put on. Let's go, to the town treasurer's, town treasurer was looking for an increase in pay. Go from $7,000 a year, or $7,198 annually, up to $10,000. We had some discussion about moving it to $8,000 annually. And, we left it open-ended so that the selectmen could do a little bit more research and background on it. I think we had two of the selectmen concurred with that. And we have some, other towns close to us around here that we have numbers on, looking at what they got paid, and we are well within the mix, I guess, is what we found out, so I'd like to hear from each of the selectmen, and we'll make a decision on this, only because we kinda put this off last year when this came to our attention, we didn't do anything, and I'd like to see where the board would like to bring this. So,
Yeah, I guess I didn't pay much attention to it last year when it came up, you know, it was,
yeah,
I think it was the same request, and
yeah, I don't think there's
So
a
we
dollar
just-
amount, but it was,
so we kinda just didn't do anything. And I actually believe that, you know, the elected officials, if they have to ask for an increase, should be in the year of election, so that everybody knows what that office pays.
yep,
You know, so it doesn't change midstream. And I looked at the numbers, and it's $7,200 a year, it's $21.42 an hour. If you went to the 8,000, which we propose, that's $23.80, which is more than any of the office people receive other than Lean. And if you go to 10,000, well, that jacks it up to $29.76 an hour.
yeah,
So, I mean, so that, even that is beyond even what the town administrator earns. And I understand, and I congratulate the person for spending 30 years. This isn't about names, it's a procedure. And, I guess we should have looked at it a little closer last year, so that way it was up front for everybody. So, I can't see it really changing it now, but if we were gonna go anywhere, I would go with the 8,000 rather than the 10,000. And it still puts her in with the mix that we have, cause we have, well, I don't know if you went to that site, and looked at the responsibilities, but talking with another town treasurer, which takes them 12, but they said it could be as much as 16 hours if you have to travel a distance. They have a bank nearby, so, I mean, it's not much to go to the bank once a week, and it's like a walk down the street,
Right.
you know? So, I think that the compensation is adequate, you know?
I'd like to, as we review our personnel policy, we include a section in there for our elected officials that pay changes are made in the year of election, and leave it at that.
Because I'm in agreement with that too, cause, far too often, select boards don't look at them, cause they don't come up on our agenda really, so we're
Right.
putting those off, and, I think that it's a good thing to put on there to look at, cause they never get changed, even our position ourselves right here. We don't wanna give ourselves a raise, but then again, it never gets looked at either, so
Right.
you can go 20, 30 years without it ever being changed,
So
you know?
since my position is coming up for election, so just my position gets pay raise this year?
Yeah, that's the confusing part.
I think we're gonna skip this year, that's a leap year, isn't it, Bob?
That's where you take a cut.
Yeah,
Bad year now.
I
So,
thought I put some humor in there.
But, you know, this way here, people that are out there that might have a little bit of interest, might say, well, you know, I think I could do that job. And
Can I ask a question, Lean? I think you answered this at our last meeting. What year is that coming up on our calendar for a town meeting for the treasurer?
she actually just ran this past
the
March,
first
so
year.
that's why,
So this is the first of, so she'd have to wait.
and
3
that's
years.
why,
So
if-
She's
got
asked
2
us the
more
last 2 years in a row and she'd have to wait 2
go
more
in the
years, so
fourth
it's a
year.
4-year process for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah,
But in fairness to her, as with any other employer or elected official, I'm sorry, cost of living raises, have we included them? Yes, we have.
Right.
And so it's not the person's without a raise, they do get cost of living, and that's equitable across the board. And I was trying to make a move to exclude elected officials, but with some afterthought, we included everybody, so there's no, it just keeps up with the, shall we say, actual cost of living, which Bob puts a lot of thought process into, bringing different indices into play.
but where there was the difference in opinions here at the table, that's why I offered the 8,000 as a place to bring someone. And then when it's advertised, it's at that, so that, you know, I guess this is kind of a notice to elected officials that if they want to see a pay change, they need to come up before the election happens.
Or at least a year before, so we can get it, you
Yeah.
know, have some talk about it and go from
And
there.
the thing is, I didn't think it was, yeah, even 8,000 is like almost a 15% pay raise, but I don't see other elected officials, once that gets out, we're gonna have there's no reason why any other elected official, myself, or anyone else would wanna come in and say, I want 15% too.
Right.
And the thing is, if you do one, how can you say no to the next person who comes in?
But I will say, if somebody's done a job for, like this person, 30 years,
No, but
if you don't ask, you're never gonna
Oh.
get anything, so you should ask, and this person has asked 2
no,
years.
and the thing
in a
is,
row.
I'm not gonna say anything negative about that, I applaud her for asking, but the thing is, at the same time though, I gotta watch the town budget and make things balance. We've got a elected official has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
The only thing that I would say is not to lose track of, to look at the job as a job and see if the requirements of the job have increased, which would increase that individual have to do more work, put more time in, et cetera.
Right,
And that could be some sort of justification for a pay increase, because
I'm sure.
I don't know if it has, I don't know what the job entails, I know nothing about it.
I don't know what
All
it
I
was
know is I
originally
get her
paid, but
handwriting on my check.
I think, we did get, what was the last time it was increased, Lean? I think we had that,
2012.
2012,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if the workload does increase, much like any job.
It hasn't changed, cause I got the
I don't
old
know.
one, and then they told me, no, you can go to the new one, which took effect
Okay.
2020,
That's good.
and the responsibilities are the same.
Well, I didn't necessarily need the
So,
responsibility, the time to fulfill those responsibilities, I don't know.
and then you
how-
have some people, you know, like everything else, you have some people that are a little bit more.
Yeah, anal about things, and yeah,
So-
exactly.
And so, the thing is, I'd be more than willing to entertain it on election year.
Okay, so Bob, you don't wanna give any raise till election year either? Or do you
Well,
wanna?
I
do
would
the-
prefer election year, but you know, where I was trying to bring everybody to the middle is make it an even 8,000.
Yeah,
It's 72 something now, I
Yeah.
think, and just bring it at 8,000, it's a slight increase. It may not make them happy, but you know what, if they're not happy and we're not happy, then everybody should be happy.
I'm in agreement
So-
with that, Bob, we'll, to go up to the 8, but leave it at that, and if they wanna come back with any more, it would have to be on election year, because
Then David,
I don't feel comfortable going any
and
higher.
I would
than that.
recommend, if you're gonna go 14, almost a 15% pay raise for her, every elected official gets 15% pay raise. Why does she get a 15% pay raise, and this gentleman over here does not get one?
He didn't come to us
Well, it doesn't matter.
for
Thing
the
is,
last 2 years.
I'm coming to you on a 15% pay raise. And the thing is, it is not fair to single one elected official out and leave the other one out in limbo. I think that is wrong. If you're gonna
Well,
do
Mike,
it, do it across the
You're
board.
already making some new headway that you're saying is part of our policy, we start looking at those.
No, but your thing is, you're ignoring that, and you're just gonna say, well, let's just give her a 15% pay raise now.
But it's a little less than 10%.
No, it's 14 point something percent, up to bring her up to from 7, where she is now
No,
to
if you
8,000.
bring, she's 72 and some change, I forgot what it was, but, and you're bringing her to 8,000, so you're not at 15%.
That's a 14
10% of 7,000 is 700.
Right, okay. But still,
Follow me?
I don't,
So,
I really think, I'm against it, and I think it's unfair to every elected official who ran for any office in this town. I think it's unfair to the town clerk, I think it's unfair to everybody. To everyone sitting at this table, it's unfair to us too. I've asked for a pay raise, and the thing is, last week I was
Well,
kinda
I
joking,
asked for
last
one.
week I did, and the thing is, I was laughed at. And so the thing is, you can laugh at me,
You have to put your request in writing, Mike.
all right, am I gonna be laughed at and thrown out of the building?
No, cause I'm a selectman too.
No, but the thing is, where's the equity here? You're giving it to one person, talk about favoritism. The thing is, you're not looking at the position, you're looking at the individual. This is supposed to be one person. And Bob keeps saying, it's not about the person, it's about the position.
right.
Well, the thing is, then you say, well, she's been here 30 years. No bearing on it at all, no bearing.
It's not the person, it's the
She
position.
knew,
She's been in that position for 30 years.
she's been in position for 1 year. She knew exactly what the salary was when she was elected. To come in now afterwards, well, I want more money because I'm an elected official. I wanna be paid more.
But just remember one thing, Mike. We're just starting to look at elected officials now in our policy if we change that. Where the
So
policy's never been.
she's the lucky one, and that gentleman over there is the unlucky one.
Well, Jeff could come to us next week and ask, I'm not saying Jeff can't.
And what are you gonna say to him? Pound sand? That's what he does, is spread sand.
I blame it there. I'm
No,
not a
but
good
the thing is-
example, I got a
The thing is,
different
you
situation.
you gotta have some equity here to every elected official. You're not giving, you single out one person, and the thing is, you say, it doesn't matter that Bob said, it doesn't matter that she's been there for 30 years. Well, obviously, you said it does matter. So the thing is, it's not fair to any other elected official.
You know, you have to commend her, but she chose to run for
Right.
30 years.
And
That's the accumulation.
But you know,
It's up to nine.
now we're gonna put something in writing where it has to be on an election year that they get
so
an increase,
she's the
right?
lucky one for this year. What about the town clerk?
Well, listen, there's been
We haven't
nothing.
voted, excuse me, we haven't voted on it yet.
I'm trying to convince you not to do that.
And it's, something that, you know, so if somebody wants a raise, Mike, and we haven't had anything in a policy or in writing for an elected official to come to us, and they gotta come actually just before an elected year, cause if they come the year of election after they've been elected, then we're gonna tell them, oh, you're too late, you gotta wait your 3 years, or 2 years, or whatever the elected term is. So the fact that we're just starting this procedure, we've gotta look into that.
Here's I want a raise.
You can't say it like that, a raise, we're tearing down a house with, right?
No, but the thing is, that's what I'm saying, and the thing is, this gentleman was probably not aware that he could probably, I know the board pretty well, I know Mike, he knows me pretty well, he knows you, and he knows us pretty well. I'll get in there and put a request in for next week to get a pay raise, and what are you gonna say to him? No, you're blowing the budget out of the water.
Well, we're gonna look at what he does, but
Can I
first let me
make-
move on to a couple people, go ahead, Lee.
Can I just say that in the years that I've been working for the town, the elected officials and their salaries were never really looked at very closely. And prior to, or early on in working with the town, there was always the discussion in the background about how a certain individual was paid up here and then other individuals were paid down here. And the analogy of how they got those rates was always questioned as to whether it was because of the powers that be at the time, that the favoritism, the, you know, the relationship, that nepotism, whatever it is. So, going forward, you have an individual that you entrust to manage your money, to invest, that have to be bonded, that have to be responsible. I just think that it's something that when you're looking at everyone's scale, another option could be, she's asking for 800, put it in a warrant article. If you can't make that decision, but she's asking us for it, we've done it before where the town clerk wanted some certain monies, and we put those for the town clerk and the tax collector in a separate warrant article. It was only $2,000 or $1,200, but it allowed the board to say, we're in the quandrum here, we have not reviewed their scale, they're kind of in the ballpark, we wanna recognize them for their time, but we'd like to give them an increase. I mean, if the board is,
The problem I have with putting elected officials in the personnel plan is now they're being treated as employees.
correct, yeah,
And that's why you find that the town clerk has step increases that she get. If you look at how that she got to the top,
Yeah.
she went through step increases.
Yeah.
Cause when they gave her those conditions, she was treated like an employee.
yeah,
So that's the quandrum that we get into.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so that's why it doesn't have to be in a personnel plan. It can be a consensus that when an elected official is looking for a raise, they should do it prior to the year of election, that they should ask so that it can be set at election time. That's what they're running for, you know?
Leo, you wanted to say something?
So number one, I agree with Mike. The compensation was set prior to, she ran with that in mind, but she did bring that to the forefront last year, was not dealt with. That
That was her.
brings it to your attention now, and she shouldn't have to come to you before she runs. Maybe the board should be looking at these elected officials' positions every year to see if, as Jeff said, their workload has increased. Maybe you need to increase their compensation. But they shouldn't have to come to you and say, no, I wanna run it, you're gonna add more money to it. That, to me, doesn't make sense, you know?
And another item I was gonna add though, Mike, is we're dealing with employees and giving them a jump on their step increases at times. And this time we were asked to do 2 in the same year. And so, you know, this has been a struggle, cause you know, you're trying to be fair. And I leave my friendships outside. When I come in, it isn't about whether I like the person or not, it's about the issue that's in front of me, so.
Yeah, and the fact is that, like Leo said, she did ask for this last year, we kind of talked about it and we put it off. I don't even know if we had any correspondence back and forth and discussed it with her or told her what our decisions were last year. And now it's back on our forefront again, which is not an election year, but last year was. What was your comment, Jeff?
I've been road agent for 15 complete years, I'm in my 16th now. Somewhere along the line, the group of selectmen was in charge, they revisited a lot of the elected officials that are paid by the hour and bumped it up. And the road agent position was one of them, but they did exactly what Bob said. They went through and they looked at the other towns, saw what they were paying for equal jobs, equal pay, and kind of mirrored that the best they could, you know? And that's how they put some thought behind it to try to get them up into whatever that range is, whether it's good or bad. And I kind of agree with Bob, I know what you're saying, you know, someone's put 30 years in working for the town of Dunbarton, you know, they should get something out of it, some sort of
A medal.
pat on the back or something, yeah, I mean, or a medal or a gold badge. And that's good, but again, what Robert said, you chose to do the job. It's like myself, I don't like going out plowing snow in the middle of the night or dealing with a water issue on Christmas Day. But I ran for the job. That's what the responsibilities are.
Yeah.
So there's a little of that too, so it is kind of a tough thing. But in her defense, she did come and ask you, it sounds like 1 or 2 years ago.
She did ask for a couple of years.
Yeah, so that would've been before the election year, so.
I'd like to make it a 10% raise, or at 10%, which I think is more than generous.
So you're saying 700 instead of 700, you're saying
So
almost the
you're
same
right
amount.
around, so you're gonna be right around $7,900. So by making it 8,000, which is a round number to work with, it's up to you guys.
And then I would,
It brings the rate, just so you know, she'd be going from 21.42 to 23.81.
and the
It's
thing is,
a couple of dollars an hour more.
that would be our first review of the first elected position. That position for the next election does not change in.
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
But again, you guys should, well, not you guys, the board should be visiting
Well, I
these,
think,
as Jeff
I
said.
think
if
we're
it's
doing,
allowed.
we're bringing her right,
I'll speak
you know,
separate.
we're keeping ourselves ahead of most of the towns that have that you know, the treasurers are getting paid. We're still the high ones. And you have towns that have more of a liability to the treasurer than we have here. I mean, so.
Okay, now, Bob's done. Leo, did you have something you wanted to add? 'Cause it kind of got mixed up.
Yeah, I know, that's all right, yeah.
You're okay? All right, I just want, so you're thinking 10%?
which is essentially $8,000, which
Yeah.
I'm gonna go concur with that, with the exception, with the caveat is, when we start reviewing all the positions
Yeah.
for the, as create a policy, this is the first position where we reviewed, and I think it's not subject to.
And I think they should be reviewed because elected officials can go down a path where, cause you wanna run for that position again, cause that's what you do now,
Yes.
all right? So the fact that it hasn't been looked at
It's unfair to him.
is unfair and
Yeah.
it should be looked at, and I think we do need to start looking at some, even us, you know, as selectmen, we don't wanna vote, like a lot of times, we've passed off our 1% or 3% raise, cause we're selectmen, we don't wanna give ourselves a raise. But somebody has to do it, the town has entrusted us to
Right.
run this town properly, and like, I'm gonna give you another example. We put in a lot more hours this year, cause of this COVID stuff, a lot more meetings, a lot more small meetings. We as selectmen didn't take that, and yet we gave it to our full-time, our part-time employees, and we gave it to elected officials. So, you know, we didn't take that check that was just available to us, but I don't think that was right either, because as it goes, we're here working in the town's best interest, and we're putting a lot more time in as well, so
Well,
I think that all of these elected officials do need to be looked
I think
at.
let's make this year, this coming year, the
Sure.
year to review it all, and this will
Yeah.
be starting with the first one, and to review every position, to include road agent, selectmen.
And we'll do them similarly, we'll look at, like we did the background on this, what do other towns pay, and
Right.
we'll look at the population, and it's not an exact science, some towns are gonna pay a little more, some are gonna pay a little less, and you wonder
Agreed.
why they did that, because the selectmen in that town chose to do it that way, so
But
it's
the-
kind of just some background that we use.
But let this be the first one for the year.
Okay,
I want 10% too.
so Bob, why don't you make that motion, and then we'll go from there to,
We'll, make a motion to set the salary of the, town treasurer to $8,000 a year.
starting, Lean, we
Starting
have to-
January 1st.
January 1st.
After approved budget,
Be ready.
Yeah,
Retroactive.
after budget's approved.
yeah.
I'll
Okay.
second that as proposed.
Okay, motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that was one, we got past that one. All right, what else do we have here? I'm gonna make a couple of, comments here just before I forget them. Our town transfer station truck that we haul the containers with broke down in New London today. There's a large hydraulic line that, has busted and it's made that vehicle unable to be moved. So they were looking for an emergency mechanic to go up there just before a holiday to repair it, and that work is in process now. And, so I just wanna make everybody aware of that.
Did you find a mechanic?
Not yet, but he was working on it before we came in.
Is he coming home tonight?
He's
Yeah.
got a lift,
Okay.
he's back.
Where's the vehicle being stored right now, do we know?
It's in
It's in New London?
No, on the side of the road?
Yeah,
somewhere, I don't know.
it's right in the township, and the town fathers know about it, and the police
Police
department knows
department,
okay.
about it, so they'll be keeping an eye on it.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta call up the tow truck and bring it back to the point
That's-
of origin.
That's what I'm almost,
I mean, it costs money, but, I mean,
and that's what I'm,
I'll give them a call when I get out of here, and we'll
Yeah,
figure
that's
it
what,
out.
like a five
I
hundred
mean,
dollar
that's,
cost?
sometimes that's what you gotta do. I mean, and it's expensive, don't get me wrong, but,
hate to have New London stickers put on the side of the truck next
well,
week.
no, and I mean, then you gotta get a mechanic up there, and a day runs into 2 days.
The road mechanic may be more expensive than having it here and doing it too, you know?
Typically they are, cause they charge by the hour, whatever, I'm just saying,
Somebody might
towing's
steal
definitely
it.
an option.
I'll discuss those options
Yeah.
with them. The other thing is, I did stop by, the Kimball Pond property, 41 Kimball Pond today. The house is completely emptied out, the cellar is completely emptied out of their products. It is locked up, I do have access to the key. There's just a couple of tiny things in the cheese shed, which, the guy that's emptying it is, you know, an elderly person helping out, and he's moving the stuff as quick as he can, but I'm talking very, very minimal things. Within the next few days, he's gonna wrap that stuff up. They're gonna work on early next week with Lean to get the container moved down to his property in Goffstown. And, I talked with, Scott Warner out there today, he seems very happy with what the town has done. He does seem happy with his accommodations now. He did say that on his own insurance policy, he had $4,500 to work with for staying, you know, at a different facility until he got better housing, and he did just get a phone, and he is gonna be working on trying to get some better housing. He did go and meet the people in Concord that we'd asked him to, and, wasn't something that, you know, they said they give out gloves, hats and gloves and that type of thing, but it was nothing that they could do for him, basically, so. He is working with Jeannie on that stuff and going through the process, but it looks like everything is going down through the process, and we'll wait to hear back from the insurance company with Lean before we make any decisions as a select board.
Just, there's a, when Jeff goes in to fill the well, there's a millstone there, I just wanna make sure the coordination is done between,
That's all been worked out,
worked
I
out.
think.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we're all,
Yeah, you wanna keep it?
your location until
Got
it's
a crack in it.
You got a crack in it?
I looked at it today as well.
Pretty bad?
No,
It's
Yeah,
not
long.
bad,
It
it's
could
probably
be-
been there a long time.
Okay,
It can be glued.
okay,
It can be glued,
okay,
Epoxy, right?
yeah.
okay.
And, in talking with Scott about that, since he was there, he said the one that they came and got, the other half of the stone,
Mhm.
that one had a crack too.
Yeah.
So,
identical crack.
it's a, it probably.
That's why they needed a new one, they had a crack in it.
The question was, I know what you wrote last week in the minutes about the town's liability for his housing
Yeah.
responsibilities. It usually, it has, we have to deal with the lease. The lease was up, is gonna be up in couple days. I wanna make sure that we're working towards, severing our relationship with them.
Yeah,
Um,
we've already done that by letter, Mike, and we're gonna be working, we do have some responsibility, on the welfare end of the town to help with the housing, and that's what we're doing and trying to complete, so. It does sound like in talking with him today that that will be resolved.
Okay, and, you know, he's moving out of town, at one point, he's not gonna be eligible for our welfare services. The welfare may be passed on, baton may be passed to the next town.
Right.
And so I wanna make sure that we have to know, I wanna do things right to help the individual, but also keep the town's liability minimum too.
Right. And I think we're all working towards that goal.
Okay.
He seems very cooperative and,
Okay,
wants to get it resolved as well.
great, great.
He was very up-spirited, so. All right, so that's done. This one thing. This is a note from the transfer station, department head, trying to change his capital reserve fund, and again, I think we talked about this earlier. He'd like to get some containers this year that will help on his project that he'd like to put the vehicles under cover and some equipment he has under cover with a, truss type design over a couple containers, and he's looking at purchasing the containers in the balance of his budget this year And in doing so, he couldn't make it here tonight with the broken down truck, but he has a container price of 40-foot containers, new, of $58.95 with a delivery of 125. So each container of the two he's looking for, and he'd like to get them this year and start storing stuff in them, and then make them in the future part of his building, but each container is $6,020. And he would need 2 of those 40-footers to start this process. And he's asking of, more or less for the board's blessing on it. I don't think it's something we need to put to a vote, because it's gonna be out of his budget.
At the same time, though, it's a large expenditure, it requires, bids.
Yep.
And the thing is, in the event, I wanna be assured that in the event that we say, think that the building is proposed and there's a no-go, are those still gonna be usable by the town?
Well, these are storage containers, so you can still use them easily, so
Okay.
that part's taken off the shelf. The only problem I have is, Lean, what day does he have to make these decisions on this year's budget until?
If we have a price and you guys give him the blessing, then we'll encumber the funds to cover those costs. But she did say they're in stock, and when do you want them delivered? So I think that that's something that can happen very quickly.
But at the same time, though, we have, that's a major expense, and the things, there are other companies that provide those too.
One thing I just wanna point out,
We
like,
have priced them out for the
we
town
did just get
clerk.
them for the smaller one.
Yeah,
Okay.
same.
Remember when we did that, so we do
Yeah.
have a good container, number of them, cause we priced the 20-footers out
Right.
with 3 vendors just a couple weeks
Okay.
back.
Yeah,
So we do have,
and that one was just delivered this week, as a matter of
And
fact.
how's this price compared to that one?
and it's not even double the other one, it's twice the size container. You know, we paid 3,800
Okay.
for the other one, like almost 4, actually, we paid a little over $4,000, and this
Four
is 6.
and change because of the delivery, which is
Yeah.
same delivery fee, but,
Then he did well by getting this a good quote then.
I think so, it looks good, and they are brand new containers, which I was, you know, I think it's better than getting an old ugly looking container that has 2 different paint jobs on it, you know, we're looking like a trailer park down there too, you know,
It's paintable.
they're paintable.
After a while, the hinges don't work.
Yeah.
So as a consensus of the board, I don't have an issue with it, I guess, and I know that he can use the storage down there. His building is kind of busting at the
he
seams.
does have money in his budget. You have it in front of you?
Yeah.
31,000.
I have no, in fact, I commend him for doing this because he wants to get a semi-permanent building built next year, but the thing is, that's gotta go through an approval process, and as long as this can be used elsewhere, I'm all in favor of it.
Okay, board has a consensus, I think, right, Bob? And,
Go ahead and,
go ahead and
two?
get them, yep, get 2 of them, and
okay,
it's in his budget, and, you know, we like to leave the department heads some of these decisions to start making on their departments by themselves, and
I just wanna make sure we adhere by our procurement policies.
yeah.
okay, that takes care of all the mailbox items, and the rest of the items will be in non-public. Did the board have anything else for the public before we go to non-public?
I'm all set for this
I
one.
just wanna publicly commend the road agent for the condition of the roads during the last several storms. They've been excellent, a lot of good people.
We tried.
Even the, some of the social media blogs, which have been so negative on some of the town activities, they were, some of the social media blogs were saying like, Dunbarton was so much better than Goffstown, just commuting.
Yeah, don't
So-
speak too quick.
No,
I wanna appreciate all the social media help, because they do tend to point out our deficiencies.
Yes, and so I was pleasantly surprised to see that, and so, I
We
salute
like
you,
to
sir.
take their input.
Yes, I salute you, sir.
Pretty easy to sit on your phone and.
Lee, do you have anything for
I
us?
thought I had printed the email, but Woody did confirm that the, trailer for the election, storage
Yep,
has been delivered, and Woody worked with Jeff to set up a
Pat.
stone pad,
We took some gravel and they leveled it up.
yeah,
No big deal,
and
Oh, yeah,
that's been delivered, so.
thanks for your help with the other department.
no problem.
We may need the same for this new one coming in too.
Yeah, I don't know what his plan is, but if he needs some gravel, we'll get it.
And Leo, did you have anything for public comment?
Not public, no.
Okay, that being said, Mike, I'd like you to read the RSA for the non-public.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to go into non-public for RSA 91 dash alpha, Roman numeral 3, paragraph, subparagraph, Roman numeral 2, paragraph C. Subject Kelsey Road winter maintenance.
Okay, motion's been